If you've ever been to dinner with me, or if you ever come to dinner with me, I will always pull out one of these. This is a little vial of pure unrefined sea salt. This particular brand is Redmond. Now, I love these because they tuck in my purse. I can put them in my backpack. And usually when I know I'm going to dinner with somebody, I will have a couple of them because everybody will always say, "What is that?" And then I will say, "It's unrefined sea salt," because I don't want to eat garbage salt that the restaurant might have. Sometimes you'll get a restaurant that will have a good sea salt, but most of them will just have regular table salt, like Morton's or something like that. So what's really cool about this, then when I do have dinner with people and I just hand it to them, so I'm always giving salt away. And if you think about it, salt used to be currency, and so it's really has this magical, I guess, feeling to it, in my opinion, but it's also just so wonderful. So when we talk about salt, and I'm going to take you around the world, this is all the salt I've pulled out from my cupboard. So we're going to go around the world talking about salt today. But if you're lucky enough to have dinner with me, I will have one of these for you. So when we talk about sea salt, the reason that we like to have sea salt is because when it's unrefined, it has all the minerals in it. Now, when you take actual salt from seawater, there's a whole bunch of minerals in there. They're not only just sodium chloride, but there's calcium and potassium and copper and selenium and zinc, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. So we want salt that is actually going to have maintained that full profile in its natural state. The problem with regular salt is that, first of all, the sources that it comes from is sometimes just not very clean sources. And then when they go ahead and they process it, they'll actually bleach it, and then they add anti-caking agents. And so some of these salts, like this one, the Celtic salt, it's a little, it's a little wet, but that's okay. I don't mind. So a lot of the regular salts are actually going to be really unhealthy for you. Now, salt got a really bad rap at one point in time. It still gets a bad rap. So, right, if you have high blood pressure, what's the first thing you have to avoid? Salt. And how many people do you know who have high blood pressure, who are on high blood pressure medication, who've avoided salt, who actually then ultimately come off of their high blood pressure medication? I'm going to say zero. And the reason is it's not salt that's the culprit. It's all the processed foods, the sugar that causes so much inflammation. High blood pressure is actually an inflammatory process. It's an inflammatory symptom. So something else is going on. But in the world of salt, we're going to talk about just the salt itself. And I promise you, salt is actually healthy for you because of that full mineral profile. We need this salt, and I'm saying salt. When I say salt, I'm talking about the unrefined ones that have all the minerals in them. And that's the whole reason, is because we're so deficient in minerals that if we can actually have salt and the minerals, it'll actually help our health. So as we go around the world, so Redmond comes from Utah. And again, I don't know anybody else that actually has these little baby vials, but if I find them, I'll use them, or I'll just keep the little vial and I'll just refill it. Which I've been known to do on those as well. So this is another really common one. This is the Celtic salt, and you can get them in, this is the fine, so you can just sprinkle it right on your food. This is coarse, so you could put this in a grinder, and or I use this a lot, if I do tomatoes with mozzarella and balsamic with basil. I'll actually then just sprinkle this as a finishing salt, or I'll use this for dishes as, just a little sprinkle over for a finishing salt. I don't always use this for cooking, so this lasts me a while. This one my sister got for me from Hawaii. This is a black lava salt. This is really wonderful. So it has a little bit of a deeper mineral flavor, really rich, almost sulfury, not quite, but it's really quite lovely. And this actually is also a really great finishing salt. It's so potent in its flavor that I don't really want to cook with it. I just want to finish it so that I get the full flavor of it. So I love that one. There's another Celtic. I'm saving this really good one for last because I have a good story for you. I do have the larger ones here of the Redmond. Now Redmond, what I love about them is then they also have these seasoning salts. So this is an onion salt that they have, and it's just organic onion, and Redmond salt. I also make salsa, and I use the Redmond or the Celtic, whichever one I decide to get. This year, the Redmond, I was able to get the Redmond in stock. This was out of stock in the large buckets. So they'll give me a wholesale discount for being able to make the salsa, but I also sell these in my office. So the Redmond I use in my salsa. So I'm not just using straight up salt in my salsa either. And I encourage you too, like if you do canning and it requires salt, you may want to look at getting a different, getting a salt, like a mineral unrefined sea salt. And I pulled out, I have a jar of kosher salt. So there's actually kosher sea salt as well. And the kosher is the flake. It's the size of it as well. So, and kosher, blessed by a rabbi, all that good stuff. So I have kosher salt down there too, and I use that for pickling. Now, this one I picked up yesterday at a store down in Detroit. And I hope no one in my family watches this video, because I'm actually going to give these as presents this year. I bought like 4 or 5 of these. But this one comes from Europe. It's a little too small. I can't quite read it. But I did read the label on here to make sure that it is legit, pure, unrefined sea salt. So this says hand-harvested traditional sea salt, coarse and unrefined. And that's what you're looking for. You want it to be unrefined. Once they refine it, they strip it of everything. And so when I read this, and I apologize, I can't quite read it. I need to brighten the light. But that's really, I just thought it was so pretty in the package, and I always give salt as presents. So if you're looking for a good gift, get a really nice sea salt, but make sure it says unrefined. Now, this is where I might be duped. Kirkland sells the pink salt, and I just realized this, and this is where I'm going full disclosure. Sometimes I forget to look at a label. This container, I've been buying this for a few years, and this is the first time I really looked at the label, because they used to have, I forget which brand it was, but it said unrefined sea salt. I'm just realizing that now they've rebranded it under Kirkland, and all it says is pink salt. It does not say unrefined. It does not say hand harvested. It doesn't say from where it came. I have no idea what's in this. Because the other thing too is on the label, they don't list any minerals. And so I'm very curious to know if this is refined or not. And if anybody out there knows, let me know. But I plan to go on a deep dive of where does Kirkland get their salt. Now, these other ones that I've already pointed out to you, they do have a label on them, and it shows you what the mineral profile is, so you can see that. And each one is a little bit different, a little higher and lower in other minerals. So they all have these different profiles. The one that I wanted to save for last was this J.Q. Dickinson. So this is actually just their popcorn salt, which is, it's a really fine salt. So this is actually good for cooking. Super potent, very, very high in sodium. So a little goes a long way on this particular salt. This is down in West Virginia, and I had the privilege of going and touring their salt mine over the summer. And it was so cool. You pull up and they have this beautiful little hut, and this garden that, beautiful picturesque gardens that you could walk through. And then they took us on a tour, and she points over, and she says, "Okay, there's the mine." And it was literally just 3 sticks, like into a tripod teepee. And she goes, "Yeah, that's where we mine it from." It was almost just like the sticks marked a hole in the ground, and that's what it was. So underneath the Appalachian Mountains is an old ocean that predates the Atlantic. So I thought that was so cool. It's 350 feet down. And so they go down and they pull this water up from this ancient ocean, and then they put it into these beds, and it goes through several layers of drying and dehydration. And the process was so cool. So you can see when you go into, they have these covered huts, and you go in and they have all the water in there, and you can see how the particulates settle out, and then eventually they start skimming off the salt. And the cool thing is what's left over, the liquid left over is this. And this is called nagari, and I'd never heard of this before. This is probably the most potent mineral and electrolyte you could possibly get. 1 teaspoon of this goes into a gallon of water and has your daily dose of all the minerals you need. So this is actually what I've started to use when I need my electrolytes. When I got sick, or like if I work out really hard, I'm sweating. And so this is actually what I'm using. And it's so cool. It's a little thick. And they also say you can use it in things like cheese making, anything that you would use gelatin for, you can actually use this. This will actually thicken things up. So, and then you're getting the benefit of having all of these minerals. So I thought that was like super cool. It's just, yeah, cool stuff. The other thing that they also had, I'll call them seasoning salts. Usually when we think of seasoning salts, we think of Lowry's, and Lowry's has like monosodium glutamate in it, and it's, just terrible salt. But this particular one, these are coarse salts. So again, I would use these for finishing. This is also from J.Q. Dickinson, and this is a ramp salt. So if you don't know what ramps are, they're kind of like a garlic, like a wild onion garlic. And so this one is infused with ramps, and then this one is applewood smoked. So all it is, they just smoked I think they smoked the water, not the salt itself. I think they smoked the water and then dry it out of there. And it's really, oh my gosh, and you can smell the applewood in there. Oh my gosh. It smells like bacon. Oh my gosh. And then the ramps have that, yeah, that smells, oh my gosh, has that nice oniony, garlicky, almost like a garlic chive. So these are really fun to finish with. And again, using them on like fresh tomatoes with mozzarella, or, fresh cucumbers, anything like that. So that is your tour of salts from around my world. Now there's so many out there, so I want you to play with them. When you go into the store, go ahead and, pick up, I've never seen this before. So I picked it up. I thought it was really cool. I read the label. I made sure it checked all the boxes. Unfortunately, I don't know that this checks my boxes. So we're going to have to go back and make sure that we look at our labels on our salt. It needs to say unrefined. And, if it says hand harvested, or if it has a story on it, tells you where it's from, then that's really the best. The J.Q. Dickinson, coming from an underground ancient ocean, what I love about that is that if there are other sea salts from around the world, the problem that we're finding in some of these, in a lot of our oceans and our waters, is we're getting microplastics. So that would be something too, where you'd have to look and say, okay, what body of water did it actually come from? Because we've got these circulating garbage dumps in the middle of our oceans, and then we're getting these microplastics, and they're showing up in our fish, and they're showing up, in our foods. And so we need to look, look a little further and make sure that you're doing your due diligence, just to look at that label, see where it's from. So I like the whole idea that this was mined from an underground ocean, ancient, pre-Atlantic. I thought that's pretty darn cool. So anyway, that's your tour around the world for salt, and let me know what you think. Go ahead and like this video, share it, and subscribe to our page, and make sure that you stick around for more cool stuff about food and lifestyle, and let's make sure that you're doing all the healthy things the right way. All right, thanks for showing up here.